Thank all of you for signing up and being here in today's webinar that Works Design is hosting in partnership with the Canadian Purpose Economy Project. We hope it provides you all with valuable insights and perspectives that maybe you haven't heard, or that will encourage you to think positively and intentionally about your sustainability and purpose-led communications. Before we get to the program, we'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. And for this, we would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we're on here today. While we meet today on a virtual platform in a webinar, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that our studio and our agency and many of our colleagues live and work on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, which is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And after providing a brief introduction to our agency and today's speakers, we're delighted to have Coro here representing CPEP, or Canadian Purpose Economy Project, who will walk us through social purpose and provide an overview of its latest publication, Disclosing with Purpose, which played a key role in enhancing our annual research on trends and best practices in sustainability communications and reporting. We'll share some of our recent observations and examples of effective practices, and we're really pleased to have executives from two of the companies we're covering in our trends research today, which I'll introduce in a moment. We'll have time to ask questions and receive questions from the audience, and finally we'll wrap up with a few calls to action. So just a few words on Works Design. We're a leading corporate communications and advisory agency based in Toronto, with a team of seasoned creative and sustainability professionals working with clients across many sectors across North America. So this is a few fancy stats on our organization, and this is certainly a space that we're presenting here that we're very enthusiastic to be talking about and to bringing some insights. So if we can go to the next slide, with many agencies recently entering the sustainability space, we're proud to have supported the development of companies' brands and key messaging, online presence, and corporate reporting for nearly 40 years, and have been deeply invested in sustainability communications and reporting for over 15 years. And so this gives you a sense of some of the main areas that we support. And so to remain in the know and to have a voice at the table, it's been critical that we're actively involved with several like-minded organizations, like some of the ones you can see here, like CBSR, the Conference Board of Canada, and of course the Canadian Purpose Economy Project. At the same time, while continuing to refresh and rethink our annual trends research on sustainability communications and reporting, which we've now conducted for 13 years. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide here, I just want to provide a few housekeeping items. Please feel free to introduce yourself using the chat function. It'd be great to kind of know who's here with us today, maybe your organization, where you're based. Please use the Q&A function if you'd like to or would like us to ask questions to any of today's speakers. Feel free to offer your thoughts on a poll question that's going to be coming later on in our session on social purpose. And we would also really appreciate if all participants can remain on mute, just to ensure that we're free from any unintended interruptions. So delighted to introduce today's speakers today. I'm not going to give a long bio, but suffice to say, LinkedIn and their websites do a pretty good job of introducing everybody. But my name's Wesley Gee. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer and Principal at Works Design. I'm accompanied by a few colleagues that were involved directly in conducting our research on trends and best practices in sustainability communications and reporting. Eric Johnson, our Director of Strategic Communications, as well as Remston Martis, who's one of our sustainability consultants. Also really delighted to have, on behalf of CPEP, Coro Strandberg, who's the President of Strandberg Consulting, but also the Chair of CPEP. I want to see if Sue's had a chance to join us. I know that there's been some logistical matters. Losing one's power in BC can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. But if she is here, great. If not, I know Coro is here to to represent the publication and the organization very well. But Sue was the author of Disclosing with Purpose, which is really a critical guide that really helped to influence some of the choices we made in what we're researching in trends this year, and what we'll be certainly spending a bit of time to discuss. We're also really pleased to be able to have Elaine Brandon and Candice Brule, who are from Loblaw. Elaine from Loblaw is its Vice President of Sustainability. Candice as Vice President of Investor Relations at Hudbay Minerals, two companies that we covered in our research and who we're really looking forward to hearing from. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Coro. The floor is yours.
Great. Very excited to be here with you, Wes, and your team and colleagues on the webinar, and nearly 150 of you, I think, around the world for us at the Canadian Purpose Economy Project, basically officially launch our latest publication, Disclosing with Purpose. If we go to the next slide, I'll just say a word or two about the Canadian Purpose Economy Project and about social purpose, just to do some level setting. But the Canadian Purpose Economy Project is basically Canada's leading think tank on social purpose business, as we launched about 2 years ago, November, I think, and we've been building out materials and resources which you can access off of our website. And in fact, we encourage you to do so if you would go to purposeeconomy.ca. Pretty easy to search that one, and subscribe to our newsletters there, and also check out our resources. But basically, we exist to accelerate the transition to the purpose economy. We define the purpose economy, as you see here, as one powered by the pursuit of long-term well-being for all, in which business and regulatory and financial systems foster an equitable, flourishing, and resilient future. And the way we do that is by engaging national system actors to create the conditions for social purpose business to start, transition, thrive, and grow. So that's the Canadian Purpose Economy Project. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to define for us today a social purpose business. We, based on global research that was conducted about 5 or 6 years ago by the United Way BC Social Purpose Institute, it basically summed up what everyone was saying was a social purpose business, which is that it's a business whose reason for being is to create a better world. There are others out there who are saying something much similar to that. There's the British Academy that says that a social purpose business, or the purpose of business, is to solve the problems of people and planet profitably, and not profit from causing problems. And then the British Standards Institute has PAS 808, and they would say that the company's purpose is its optimal strategic contribution to the long-term well-being of all people and the planet. And if you put all those together, it really adds up to a business whose reason for being is to create a better world, and to do so naturally profitably, or it wouldn't be in business, or it wouldn't be a business, if you will. Now, social purpose businesses then, given that they have a purpose to create a better world, it could be a social purpose, could be an environmental purpose, could be a socio-ecological purpose, socioeconomic purpose, however it is they have defined it. But then they unlock all of their enterprise capabilities, their talents, their resources, their influence, their reach and scale in pursuit of their purpose. The social purpose acts as the company's North Star then, and it becomes the guiding principle that helps it steer and navigate through turbulent times. And it also is the basis on which it mobilizes employees and stakeholders around it. Because no social purpose business can achieve its purpose on its own, which is why you find them adopting quite aspirational and ambitious and bold purpose statements, because their intent is to engage stakeholders to help them to achieve it. And of course, we all know If your stakeholders want you to win, you can't be beat. So there is a really profound value proposition for moving in this direction. If we go into the next slide, here is the vision of the Canadian Purpose Economy Project, which is that by 2030, that 1/4 of Canadian businesses are adopting, disclosing, and authentically embedding their purpose across their operations and relationships, and collaborating with others to achieve it. So this is our vision, and we chose that number 25% because that's the number by which we will have achieved a tipping point, by which time we hope all businesses will have a social purpose and it will become mainstream. And you'll see in our vision, of course, that we have a vision that these businesses are disclosing and authentically embedding their purpose, and that is the subject of today's webinar. This is our theory of change, if you will, over about 3 years of research across Canada of businesses and of thought leaders and academics and others who are working in the space of social purpose. We defined the 10 levers of change, which, once activated, will create the enabling context by which social purpose can become the norm. You can go to our website and read more about it, but you can see one of the activation points we named was accountants. And they, given their role in reporting, accounting, and assurance, we had in mind when we founded CPEP that we wanted to mobilize the accounting profession and to have them start to play a role to authenticate purpose, disclosures, and provide guidance on it. So the overall purpose of the report, of course, is to fill a gap in guidance in reporting. There are no guidelines in the world on how a social purpose company should authentically disclose on their purpose. We thought that we needed to have guidelines so that companies could help avoid the purpose say do gap, where perhaps they say that they have a purpose, but they're not implementing it and advancing on it in a credible way. We wanted to avoid purpose washing. And we wanted to help the leaders that were wanting to communicate authentically how it is they were advancing on their purpose. The target audience for the report, of course, is preparers and users of social purpose disclosures, plus the social purpose community, of course. And for our methodology, we conducted research from last November to May. There was a literature review, a best practice review. We interviewed investors, small and large companies, assurance providers, and corporate reporting experts, including US. Thank you very much for your contribution. And you can see our report sponsors here below. So if you go to the next slide, then that will set up the purpose disclosure framework. And I'm now going to share my screen. You can see 2 columns here, the disclosure elements and the disclosure objectives. This is a summary. Later on in the report, there's a more detailed framework, which includes column 3, which is qualitative measures that you can disclose on, and column 4, which are quantitative measures. So I'm going to walk through, I'm going to sort of skip through these disclosure elements. I'm going to land on these disclosure objectives, and then I'm going to speak to a few of the examples to give you a feel for what this tool looks like. So you can see, I think there are 7 disclosure elements. The first being purpose, meaning, and development. And here, reporters are asked to disclose the organization's purpose and what it means, how it was developed or updated, including the role of stakeholders in that, and how users can access purpose disclosures. Is a recommendation that there be an index or a stated location of the published purpose disclosure, sort of like a GRI index, a global reporting index that some of you might be familiar with. Disclosure element number 2, business model and prospects. So here we're asking the company to disclose its social purpose business model. How the purpose drives the organization's commercial success is one of the objectives of that. And here we're looking for the reporting company to share perhaps how their social purpose is helping them gain access to markets, gain access to capital, talent, or innovation, but we're asking them to tie the social purpose to the company's value proposition. We believe that investors will want to understand that. The next disclosure objective here is how the organization leverages or changes its business model to achieve its purpose. And here, some examples, qualitative examples of disclosures could be an explanation of the scale of the organization's competencies, assets, and activities that it will be bringing to address its social purpose, any structural changes that the company undertook to maybe create a social purpose position or an acquisition or whatnot to move forward on the purpose. The next objective here, how the organization engages its value chain, relationships, and stakeholders to achieve its purpose. So, for example, a quantitative measure might be the number and percentage of customers and suppliers that the organization has engaged to advance its own purpose and encouraged to adopt a purpose. So that would be an example, a quantitative example there. And then we move into strategy. Here we are suggesting that a company should disclose how they might have a vision statement that helps the organization create where the organization demonstrates where it wants to go in relation to its purpose, the use of a vision statement. In that sense, how the organization's business goals, objectives, and targets provide a pathway to realizing the purpose. In other words, how the company's corporate strategy delivers and furthers the social purpose ambition. And then disclosing the commercial and financial impact of the purpose, perhaps revenues from social purpose type products, and how the organization resources the purpose financially. Now, moving quite quickly here to look at culture and human resources. Basically, this performance objective then, it looks at how the organization aligns its culture with its purpose and integrates it in human resource management. An example of that would be how the company's values demonstrate an alignment to the purpose, so that there's evidence that the organization is building a purpose-driven culture. On governance and accountability, how is the purpose reflected in the board's terms of reference, role descriptions, and other policies, and is it included in the board's recruitment, education, and evaluation procedures? And also, what is the management's role in governance processes, and how is management managing and overseeing purpose integration and achievement? As part of governance and accountability, we have an objective that the company discloses how purpose is reflected in CEO objectives and incentives. A lot of these are qualitative measures, as you can see. Next up, we have
This would be risks and opportunities.
Risks and opportunities, yes. So here, let's look at this as a bundle. 17 through 20 is how the organization is addressing risks to the purpose or arising from the purpose and or realizing opportunities from the purpose. And I think this is the last one, nearly the last one, the description of the organization's purpose measurement framework and demonstrating how the organization is actually integrating purpose through the organization and achieving impact against the purpose as well. We're running out of time here for my presentation, so I'm just seeing if that's we're pretty well here.
Yeah.
And then just wrapping up, where in the company under the measurement framework is looking at how it is using what methods is the company deploying to enhance the quality and credibility of disclosure. So, for example, were our stakeholders involved in vetting the disclosures? Is internal audit involved? Are there external auditors involved? Are any of the disclosures assured? So that gives you a quick overview and a feel for the kinds of metrics that and disclosure objectives that we have that's communicated in the purpose disclosure report and framework. And I just have one final slide. We have 5 companies that are already working on using these guidelines. 2 of them are very actively leveraging the guidelines, and another 3 are hoping to use that in their publications next year. And we are looking for more first movers of the adoption of the guidelines. So we invite any of you, if interested, to reach out to Wes and I if you are interested in leveraging them and applying them in your next reporting cycle.
Thanks, Coro. Yeah, as you can see, I mean, there's so much more to social purpose in terms of how you can truly demonstrate it and ultimately communicate it within your organization. So we wanted to take a pause here because there's a polling question that we'd like to be able to bring up. Now that everyone has been fully educated on social purpose, you're all experts in this space. We just wanted to take a pause to get a sense of who's on this call and to give us a sense of your organization and whether your organization has a social purpose or maybe you have a purpose but it isn't a social purpose. It's okay to say I'm not sure as well. So we'll just spend another 10 seconds or so just to see where we land. But really great to be able to see so many people on this call representing organizations that have a social purpose, some that have a purpose, but maybe there's an opportunity to be able to take a look and see, what is it that we're really trying to do and the type of impact that we want to have on society and the environment, for instance. So let's put a pin in it here and see where we land. It looks like 64% around having a social purpose, 27% having a purpose, but maybe not in the social purpose space quite yet, and a few others either no or I'm not sure. So I'd like to just be able to first introduce our trends research, and I'll promptly turn things over to my colleagues. So the trends research is what we've been very privileged to conduct for the past 13 years. It involves colleagues across our agency in many different walks of life, project managers, art directors, sustainability colleagues, writers, and others. It has been a way for us to truly understand the landscape, but also be able to share with others in an objective way by thinking about what are companies across the globe doing, not only in that fancy 52-page PDF, but how are they also communicating via the web, via social media and other means. So today's intended just to be a subset that focuses on social purpose, but we're pleased to be able to share at a later time the broader lens of what we've taken this year and what we've learned. So a number of topics are covered in trends. A few of them will be covered today, particularly around telling your story and around leadership and governance. A few brief highlights. It's a global sample that includes companies across the globe, 105 companies that are on different indices that have won awards or recognition within this space. So it isn't intended to be representative of all companies in Canada or globally, but of leaders within the space. We have 94 metrics covered within our trends research. Several colleagues involved, several sectors and years that we've done this research. And as you can see, a lot of hours poured into getting our hands dirty, having plenty of geek out meetings, and really immersing ourselves within the space. So I'll turn things over to Eric, who's going to first cover a few themes and trends that we covered.
Thank you, Wes. So as everyone can tell from my hairline, I've been at this for a while. When I started, the focus was on mission, vision, and values. And those were all important things, but it became apparent after a while that while they were necessary, they weren't sufficient. And as Coro said, we moved into the recognition that organizations to inspire their employees, to connect with their larger stakeholders, needed a purpose that went beyond that and worked into contributing to a better world. And in our research, we found that of organizations with an articulated purpose, 56% called out society and a contribution to society within that purpose. 42%, and I'm just going to talk about these two, talked about climate change, which is obviously the great challenge of our time. And these two theories, society and climate, were reflected as themes in pretty much all the, more than half the books that we looked at, more than half the stories that people told about what their organization is doing to contribute to a better world. Again, of the organizations we looked at, 81% of the companies had a purpose-driven brand. 72% that we looked at had a social purpose statement. Now, what's interesting is only 32% connected that purpose to the company's mission, vision, values. So I think they're missing a trick here. And I will tell you, while we're supposed to be talking about best practice, there were a couple of reports that spoke about being purpose-driven and never actually mentioned what that purpose was in the report. So I'm going to call that worst practice. And I know that nobody who's on this call would be responsible for such a report, because what a purpose does, and why you want to have it, is it provides that through line between your mission, your vision, your values, and your actions. And that's what's going to build trust and credibility in the reporting that you do. Social purpose is becoming increasingly a more focused and targeted expression of purpose. And TELUS has broken out its social purpose from its purpose. So its social purpose is to leverage our global leading technology and compassion to drive social change and enable remarkable human outcomes. So that's what is doing beyond the organization, but with the social focus. And it aligns very much to social capitalism, which has long been a defining aspect of the way TELUS relates to the world and how it's trying to contribute to being both a profit-oriented organization, but recognizing using that profit for purposes just beyond shareholder value. This is one of the most interesting expressions of purpose and social value we found in the reports we looked for. So Lloyd's Banking Group, not to be confused with Lloyd's Insurance, but almost equally vulnerable. Its purpose is helping Britain prosper. And I think in a post-Brexit world, that's very interesting because it's targeted, it's focused, it's clear. What are we doing? We're here to help make Britain better. Within the theme of its report this year, which was building a sustainable and inclusive future, you have that social dimension being made very clear in the theme of the report, underlying the helping Britain prosper purpose. So theming and messaging is something that's been a central concern of my work since I've been in this business, which is now over 30 years. Of the organizations we looked at, 52% had a theme, 58% aligned those themes with their purpose. And of those, 88% that had purposes linked them into their leadership statements. And so again, that goes back to finding this through line, to repeating the purpose, to showing how the purpose connects to what your organization does, and then reporting on that effectively. Now, interestingly, a lot of organizations, we saw this this year, used their purpose statement as their theme, or they developed a theme that was clearly aligned with their purpose statement. So BC Lottery Corporation, we exist to generate win-wins for the greater good. So that is their purpose. Its function to generate revenue that the province can apply to socially valuable projects, which in turn benefits all British Columbians. And that was reflected in the theme, winning with purpose. Hudbay also used this year their purpose statement as their organizational theme. And what they did within the organization is, within their report, they had a long feature story about how their purpose was developed, which makes it clear that this isn't something that was externally imposed, but something that was developed organically, something that was true to the organization. They talk about how it was a multi-stage process, the number of leaders and contributors from across the organization, so that when you read the report, you get the sense that this purpose is authentic and is in fact driving what the organization does. And so going back to what I said earlier, people who sort of mentioned their purpose and then didn't work it in the report, Hudbay is showing is how purpose integrates with what they do every day, and that's why they can include it authentically within their reporting. And Remston, I think, governance strategy. I'm going to turn that over to Remston. Unless there are any questions that anybody had relating to
I think we'll hold for questions until we get to the Q&A period, just in the
or
interest.
fair enough. You can be
Yep.
guided by West and hold your questions till we get to the Q&A period.
Thank you, Eric. So as most of you would agree, it is important to have a robust strategy, one that is based on specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals. However, it is also paramount to ensure that effective oversight and incentive mechanisms are in place to drive meaningful progress against those goals. While most purpose-oriented companies in our sample had goals aligned with their social purpose statements, only over a fifth included compensation in their purpose-aligned goals. This indicates an opportunity to incentivize performance and enable the companies to stay true to their purpose. As the common saying goes, what gets measured gets managed. While there is nuance in that statement, I believe what gets incentivized gets prioritized. And we'll see a couple of examples coming up. The first one being from Sun Life. Their purpose is to help their customers achieve lifetime financial security and live healthier lives. They proudly present the 5 focus areas of their sustainability strategy, namely increasing financial security, fostering healthier lives, advancing sustainable investing, building resilience to climate change, and operating as a trusted and responsible business, which they believe are areas where they can create a competitive advantage and differentiation for their business. To this end, they present key milestone achievements over the last 5 years of their purpose-led sustainability plan and disclose progress towards those goals with year-over-year comparative data presented in a sustainability scorecard aligned with those 5 focus areas. Next, we have an example from Loblaw, and their purpose is to help Canadians live life well. They communicate this statement on their website sustainability landing page titled Responsibility and describe the 2 priorities it covers, which is fighting climate change and advancing social equity. These are areas where they believe they can have the biggest impact. In the report, the chairman's letter states in the 2023 ESG report, the chairman's letter states the goals that tie to these 2 areas and how they performed that year. On one of the following pages, which is the image on the right on screen, they take an illustrative approach to articulate the meaning of their purpose statement and how it contributes to positive environmental and social impact. The report content aligns well with the purpose statements. And a little bit more about those goals. On fighting climate change, Loblaw has SBTi validated emission reduction targets. They disclose their scope 3 emissions by category, and they also have disclosures around their climate risks and opportunities. They're transparent in disclosing their CDP scores. And what I really liked in this pillar is that 2 out of 3 climate goals are tied to waste reduction as it pertains to plastic and food. On the second pillar, which is advancing social equity, they have 5 goals, out of which 3 are philanthropic. I also like that they have a goal for inclusion training for over 200,000 employees, which is a great way to instill direct impact, that is impact within the organization, and indirect impact, that is impact within communities and customers served. And with that, I'll pass it over to Wes for the Q&A round.
Great. Thanks, Ramston. So we're really lucky to have Alain and Candace here. I wanted to start by just asking a question to each of you. If you wouldn't mind just in your own words, just describing each of your organization's social purpose and maybe some details around how it was developed and your company's intended lasting impact. So maybe we can start with Alain and followed by Candace.
Yeah, thanks very much, Wes, and happy to be here. We learned everything we learned from the works many, many years ago on reporting. So happy to swing back around to your neighborhood. So our social purpose, as was said, was helping Canadians live life well. I was listening intently to the presentation. I think our journey to that purpose was a bit more organic and over many years. We're a family-owned business, and I've always benefited a bit from the fact that our chairman will be the chairman for 30 years, and then probably one of his children will be the chairman after that. So we have always had this kind of longer-term view about how we run the business, and that's certainly relevant to the things the people on this call focus on. And as the business has grown and we've added these really kind of key components to people's daily lives, like Shoppers Drug Mart and otherwise, it just became sort of self-evident that the best way that we can help Canadians is in that kind of everyday sick day, birthday party, etc., over and above sustainable initiatives like getting to net zero and reducing plastic waste. So our journey to our purpose has been a bit of a slow multi-year process, but I think it's a mark that it must be working, because it's been in place for about 5 years, and it's recounted daily throughout the halls of Loblaw. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Elaine. And Candice?
Yeah, thanks, Wes. And again, thank you to the Works team for having us and putting this event together. Before I jump in, I just wanted to give a 30-second overview of my background, because you might wonder, why is investor relations heavily involved in the purpose statement development? But I think, so I've spent 17 years in the mining sector in financial related roles, moved over to investor relations about 10 years ago, but my role has continuously expanded over that 10-year period, as we've worked closely with the Works on various initiatives. About 5 or 6 years ago, I became accountable for all of our external communications, in addition to financial planning analysis and some more sustainability related initiatives in the recent couple of years. But I think, with that external communications accountability, we've spent quite a few years in developing our purpose statement. And similar to what Elaine said, ours is also organically generated through, and I know Eric alluded to it in his presentation, through a multi-step process. But I would say it really began in 2021, when our senior leadership team, we do annual kind of strategic offsites. We decided to take a close look at our vision, mission, and value statements that we had at that time. And we wanted to ensure that it was capturing who we are today. And we recognized that, our vision and mission needed some work. And instead, they were a little bit more focused on creating value or in creating returns for investors, but we really wanted to leverage our impact on other stakeholder groups beyond just the kind of external investor stakeholder group. So, thinking about our employees, governments, communities, essentially anyone who's been impacted by our company actions. So, and we did a little bit of a brainstorming session in that strategic offsite, and realized, we've been a critical minerals producer for close to 100 years in Canada. And so we've kind of always been working with purpose, and there's this real opportunity to be able to communicate that more and inspire, its stakeholders both internally and externally. So, and together with, as the world moves towards a cleaner energy future, the metals we're producing, we recognize we're becoming even more important in addressing climate change. So this deep-rooted history, together with, the critical minerals production, we realize that we are making a positive contribution to the world, and many positive impacts to communities, employees, consumers, and investors. So, we started speaking with our employees. That was a key focus area of us. We kind of looked at all of our business units, conducted one-on-one interviews with employees at many different levels, including superintendents and site managers at our mining operations, and to really understand from their perspective, why do we exist? Why what we do matters, and really hear from the ground up on the purpose of the company. Through that exercise, we found out that one of our biggest business units was actually on the path of developing their own local purpose statement. So it was perfect timing for us to leverage the work that they've done to really be aligned on what they view as their impact on the ground. We also canvassed our other business units and, I think an important point here, and it was touched on earlier in the presentation, is we didn't want our purpose statement to be some sort of fluffy statement that the senior leadership team decided to put in place. We really wanted it to be organic. We wanted it to be authentic. And really that's why we took the time to canvass all of our internal stakeholders, employees, to really develop the themes. We came up with 4 key themes throughout this multi-month process. And essentially those 4 themes are anchored in our purpose statement. I know it was shown on an earlier slide, but talking about our caring, which closely links to our values, because I think we decided our values have been in place for many, many years and continue to be reflected throughout all of the decision making we've been doing. So that remains true. We tweaked our mission statement to be kind of just solely investor focused, but incorporating some of the core competencies in community relations. But then our purpose kind of links all of that together. And so our purpose is we care about our people, our communities, and our planet, and we provide the metals the world needs. We work sustainably, transform lives, and create better futures for our communities. And so you can see a lot of those elements that I mentioned really kind of captured in that purpose statement. And thank you to the Works team for helping us wordsmith that into a really effective statement that we think is reflective of all the work that we've done. And I think we ultimately released the purpose statement last year with our sustainability report publication in June. And we thought that was the right timing and platform because you can kind of see how it's cascaded through all the levels of our work in the organization, that we would have normally discussed in our sustainability report. So it's a long-winded answer, but I think it reflects the thoughtful and methodical approach that we took kind of developing this from the ground up.
I think it really just does reflect that thoughtful approach that was taken across the organization. So thanks for sharing that, Candace. Creating a purpose is one thing, really kind of actioning it and having checks and balances is another. And Elaine, I was just wondering, I know Remston had a chance to share, some of those goals that are in place, for instance, but just wondering, what kind of checks and balances are in place just to evaluate whether you're moving forward towards your social purpose and what you choose to communicate as well.
Yeah. So as was mentioned, below our Live Life Well purpose, we've landed on these 2 focus areas in terms of our sustainability and social impact work. So advancing social equity and fighting climate change. And then for each of those themes, we've got several key targets. So going to net zero, making all of our plastic packaging recyclable or reusable by the end of next year, eliminating food waste from our stores, becoming Canada's most inclusive and diverse workplace, and then supporting our various charitable partners. So that's how we organize our time, and how we ensure we're getting things done is we've embedded part of the compensation package at Loblaw is tied to meeting very specific metrics associated with each of those goals. So for carbon, for food waste, for plastics, and on inclusion and community investment, we have very specific targets that all people that work at Loblaw have embedded in their compensation, and then a portion of it is sort of allocated based on how we do. So it was mentioned earlier, what is incented is prioritized. We feel that it may in fact do that, but I think the reason we embedded it was more just to really show that commitment to the folks that work at Loblaw that this is indeed important. This isn't just something that we say in our ESG report once a year. This is something we want to have embedded into the thinking and to the decisions that are made every day inside the company. So that's how we hold people accountable. And I will give a shout out to the people, the dedicated team that are very, very focused on our reporting. We have a very, very diligent and skilled group of effectively auditors that spend their days really in the numbers, ensuring that we are not only getting done what we need to get done, but that we have all the data and background to validate. But whatever we put in that report is quadruple confirmed. So that's how we go at it.
Thanks, Elaine. And Candace, I know that your purpose is still relatively new, but just wondering if you, and you shared a few things, but I was wondering if you could, talk a little bit about those kind of checks and balances, and to give us a sense of, how you might be moving towards understanding, how far you are getting towards achieving your social purpose.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We're a little bit earlier in our purpose journey, but I think we, this year we took it one step further. As you guys saw on the slides, the theme of our sustainability report this year was our purpose statement, and I think that was a great way for us to communicate how we're living our purpose directly through the report. So it's probably more the qualitative side of things and how we're measuring our performance on our purpose. But specifically, we would have had a section in our report called our social or environmental. These have been renamed to be kind of directly linked to our purpose now. And I think so we give a lot of real life examples throughout the report as to how we're living our purpose. And I appreciate some of Coro's earlier comments on guidelines on how to, measure this going forward. The index recommendation is particularly interesting, and I think something that we'll continue to look at. But I think what I want to add, it's what you see externally in the sustainability report is great, but what we've also done is internally we've enhanced our communication of our purpose to our employees. We've done several kind of events where we've, reiterated the purpose and linked it to some of the specific activities we've been doing internally. We've also done it locally on the ground in our communities. So some of the community events, one that we did recently this year at a newly acquired mine in BC, we had our purpose statement materials kind of all around. And I think that's really important because it was a new mine. We're trying to get the local stakeholders understand kind of who Hudbay is, but it's also a way for us to align our culture and implement kind of the One Hudbay culture across the new business that we're acquiring, but both internally and with some of those local stakeholders. So I think, we're a year into our purpose statement launch, but we've done a lot of great work both internally and externally to demonstrate how we're living our purpose through examples.
Thanks, Candace. I can see that there's a question that came in here from an anonymous participant, but maybe for whomever would like to take a crack. The question is, what is the public's perception or reception of these social purpose approaches? Do they buy into it, or do they see this as marketing? So they'd be interested to hear from any of the participants, really. I know there was a cue towards grocery retail as to see if there's an opinion there, but also from Coro as a board member of BCLC. Maybe either of you can respond to this, and Candace, if you have some thoughts on it as well.
Well, maybe Wes, I'll just jump in on.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just maybe it is the case that I'm on the board of BC Lottery Corporation, but if I could sort of speak to it from the Canadian Purpose Economy Project. This is why we created the purpose disclosure guidelines, so that companies like Hudbay and Loblaw, who are already on the path, of course, on disclosing on their purpose, but the other companies that are on this path are Cooperators, TELUS, Armor Valve, which actually has published. It's a small family-owned business, and it's published the first social purpose report in the world using our guidelines. So shout out to them, are using Coast Capital. They'll be using these guidelines to inform their disclosures, because they want to actually communicate authentically how it is that they're committed to this business model approach, and committed to making sure that they integrate their purpose into everything they do, and are driving impact against their purpose using the metrics that are set out in the purpose disclosure framework. So it is, in fact, to avoid this prospect of purpose washing that we are really championing this idea of these purpose disclosure frameworks, and encourage other purpose-driven, I put that in quotes, purpose-driven organizations to leverage them. Not only will the guidelines help them figure out how to have authentic purpose disclosures, but it's basically a guidebook for governing and implementing your purpose. So it can be used for that purpose as well. So it is the marketing challenge that we are trying to avoid by bringing these purpose disclosures to the market in collaboration with Works Design.
Thanks. And I think just some of those earlier reflections on checks and balances are a way to be able to dispel some of the skepticism that people might have about companies making statements. But Elaine or Candace, do either of you want to comment on the question?
Well, so I'm happy to answer with, a couple different things. I think the sad reality for someone that has my job is that I think if you walked into one of our stores and asked 100 people walking out with their groceries what the company purpose of Loblaw was, or our two key themes, I'm not sure that anyone would know. And so our company purpose is more about driving how we run our business versus marketing it to the people that shop inside a Loblaw banner store as a reason why to pick us. But there's a second part to it too, which is, I think our experience is that, trying to break into someone's very busy mind with the idea that Loblaw's purpose is such is not actually the way to do it. I think Canadian shoppers, certainly from a grocery perspective, they want to shop with confidence that the place that they pick has the same kind of values that they can support, and just know they don't need to go product by product to know what's good and what's bad, that it's a company that's got the right ethos, that's trying to do the right things, all across the aisles. So I think it's a bit more esoteric than a sort of branded slogan or a marketing campaign trying to convince people of one thing or another. It's about the type of company you want to be and how you show up sort of every day. And I think people appreciate that for those that are looking closely enough.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan. Candace?
I'll just quickly add, I mean, I don't think I have much more to add beyond what Coro and Elaine provided, but I think for us, it wasn't a branding tool. It was a way to capture the impact we've had, the positive impact over many, many years. And it's what we felt was missing. And it's like I had mentioned earlier, it's not so much as an external communication tagline. It's very much helping us define internal culture, attracting prospective employees, helping other stakeholders understand who we are and the impact we're having. So it's I think that helps in the purpose greenwashing way. It's beyond just a brand externally. It's really organic and embedded throughout the business.
And if I may just jump in from the perspective of BC Lottery Corporation, because you did ask about them and you've seen a bit of their approach profiled here. As a gambling company that has adopted a social or societal purpose as the reason it exists, it really seeks to present itself in the marketplace to customers, to stakeholders, to governments, industry partners as being an authentic purpose-driven company, and it will be using these guidelines and in fact its report that it's publishing in November has used these guidelines also with the Purpose Disclosure Index to show that it's authentically on the path of continuous improvement, seeking to show up humbly and honestly in the marketplace and really leverage its business as a greater force for good. And so we think that we need to be on this kind of a path. We invite others to do so as well, so we can all really start to accelerate authentic social purpose in Canada, but also the impact that is driven from having a societal purpose.
Good. Thanks, everybody. I know we've reached the hour here, so and thanks to everybody for sharing those questions, and apologies we didn't have time to tackle them all. So just in terms of a quick call to action, we'd certainly encourage you to check out CPEP's website and its latest guides for guidance on how to drive forth social purpose, to be able to get your CEO to sign a call to purpose, which is really to demonstrate your organization's commitment to having a social purpose, and to show up, to develop a purpose and integrate it into your corporate communication. So, a few quick steps there. And just as a final slide, we wanted to just also mention that end of day today, we will be launching our 2024 Sustainability Reporting and Communication Trends and Best Practices as a microsite. So you're welcome to go to our website to learn more about it. So thanks again to Candace, to Elaine, to Coro, Sue, I know you tried to join, but thank you for all the work you put into your publication. And we just thank all of you for being here and for being such an active participant. It's a really relatively new and a space for tremendous potential to really drive change within and outside of organizations. So we hope that you'll be all carrying this torch and playing a valuable role within your organizations. Have a wonderful day.